Recent headlines have reinforced a warning that
Mr.
Republicans
President, and a
and
landmark
economic experts
report
have been articulating literally for months. The massive spending.
Without objection.
Recent headlines have reinforced a warning that Republicans and economic experts have been articulating literally for months. The massive spending Democrats insisted upon at the outset of the Biden administration was not in step with actual needs. Yesterday, I talked about some of the ways the multi-trillion-dollar spending spree rammed through in March has actually delayed our reopening and our recovery. About the disappointing fall-off in hiring, despite an historic number of open jobs. After Democrats renewed a federal program that pays people extra not to work. Well, here's another misplaced priority from that spending spree. Our Democratic friends' insistence on stuffing another wheelbarrow of cash into the accounts of state and local governments that were already rebounding from the crisis. Back in February, as Democrats insisted states were in dire need of another huge bailout, 29 of the 50 states were actually closing a 12-month chapter in which their revenues met or exceeded the year before. 29 of the 50 states were actually closing a 12-month chapter in which their revenues met or exceeded the year before the pandemic. The faster than expected economic recovery, combined with the 5 bipartisan bills Congress passed in 2020, left a lot of cities and states in even better shape exiting the pandemic than they were heading into it. Rising tax revenues had put these states in a position not only to weather pandemic-related downturns, but to fill in pre-existing budgetary potholes that actually had nothing to do with COVID hardships. But of course, that didn't stop Democrats from cramming nearly another $200 billion in state bailouts into the American Rescue Plan. Impressively, California got its hands on $26 billion of the $200 billion. And by the way, the state of California now claims it already has a budget surplus 3 times that size. 3 times that size they have a budget surplus, and then we're sending them another $26 billion. They're having to brainstorm new ideas to spend the unneeded avalanche of cash. I understand the state's governor has come up with one idea he likes. He's planning to cut a timely round of state-level stimulus checks to include people in the country illegally just in time for his recall election later this year. Is that the kind of urgent priority that Democrats had in mind when they used COVID to push through what they called the most progressive legislation in history? Experts warned it was poorly targeted. Republicans said American families deserved better. But the big catalog of political payouts was pushed right through. So let's remember exactly how this played out before we're doomed to repeat it again. Now, Mr. President, on an entirely different matter, yesterday the Senate took a step toward considering wide-ranging legislation that would touch on multiple parts of the U.S. economy in the name of increasing innovation and competitiveness. A secure, productive, and innovative America that can outcompete China is something that all 100 senators want. Of course, in a place like the Senate, you're guaranteed to find a wide variety of different ideas about the best ways to encourage that. A number of our colleagues have assembled a proposal that touches on a long list of subjects, everything from funding universities to regional economic development, to Indo-Pacific geopolitics, to artificial intelligence, to cybersecurity, and beyond. Legislation this broad needs a thorough, robust, and bipartisan floor process, including a healthy series of amendment votes. As one of my Republican colleagues, the ranking member on the Commerce Committee, explained as he supported moving the legislation out of committee, the current draft is, quote, not ready for prime time yet, and deserves a robust process here on the floor. I understand this bill has come to the floor with a bipartisan understanding and the Democratic leader's assurances that there won't be an effort to close debate on amendments prematurely. So I look forward to the Senate considering these important issues, and I hope all of this interest in our competition with China will lead our Democratic friends to rethink President Biden's intention to cut our defense spending after inflation. The single best thing we can do to stay competitive with China is to give our armed forces the resources they need to stay competitive with China. Now, one final matter. Sometime soon, we also expect to vote on a Democratic resolution to overturn a rule put in place by the previous administration. Under Republican leadership, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, an aggressive Washington regulator of the American job market, issued modified marching orders that increase transparency and decrease the odds of expensive lawsuits. Several years back, one investigation found the EEOC had become very aggressive and was perpetrating a kind of legal harassment on job creators, often leaving American taxpayers on the hook for court cases which the commission actually lost. Taxpayers were paying to sue job creators and lose in court. So Republicans updated their guidance. It was the first substantial update of the way the EEOC handles disputes and conciliation since back in 1977. It said that the employer in question deserves a written summary of the facts behind a complaint, a written explanation of the legal justification, a few other details, and 14 days to respond. Sounds pretty reasonable. This helps ensure the Commission is making a good faith effort to see if the dispute can be settled outside of court before beginning a costly adversarial process. Apparently, even these modest steps were too much for my friends on the Democratic side. They want to roll back this progress. A number of groups have asked them not to do this, from small business owners to builders and contractors to restaurant owners to retailers and beyond, the same employers that are already struggling to climb back out of this pandemic and rehire workers. They don't need any more Washington headwinds in their faces, and taxpayers don't need more of their dollars being funneled back toward trial lawyers. So I would urge senators to vote against this resolution so the current improved rule can actually be left in place.